Welcome to the debate. Have you ever found yourself caught in one of those woven bamboo finger traps? You know the ones I mean.
Oh, absolutely. They are incredibly frustrating little things.
Right. So you pull your fingers apart and the woven cylinder instantly tightens. And, the harder you pull to get free, the more violently trapped you actually become.
Yeah, it's a brilliant mechanical paradox.
Exactly. To escape, you actually have to do the completely counterintuitive thing. You have to relax. You push your fingers together, which releases the tension, so the trap loosens.
And honestly, that is the exact same mechanism at play in human relationships when they become locked in a really severe cycle of polarization.
Precisely. So today, we are examining the psychological architecture of the 2025 film You, Me, and Tuscany. We're looking at it specifically as a contextual therapy film.
Right, and analyzing the character dynamics through the lens of internal family systems, or IFS as it's often called in the field.
Yeah, and for those familiar with that framework, the film is essentially a masterclass in watching a marriage suffocate inside a classic pursuer-distancer cycle.
Which is incredibly common, but the film brings it to such a painful extreme. We have the wife who is operating almost entirely as a perfectionist manager. She is the controller in the dynamic.
Yeah, she really is.
And opposite her is the husband who is just completely retreated into an avoidant protector role. He is the avoider.
Right, so they are entirely stuck in that finger trap. And the central question we are debating today is, in a highly polarized relationship system like this one, who bears the primary responsibility to initiate what we call unblending?
Basically, who has to make the first move to save the system?
Exactly. I'll be arguing that the controller must take the first step because they hold the system's pressure valve.
And, well, I'll be arguing that the avoider actually has to initiate that unblending. Their brave step out of withdrawal is really the only action that truly shatters the cycle.
But before we dive into those positions, we should probably clarify what unblending actually means, biologically and emotionally in this context, rather than, just throwing the term around.
That is a great point. So the foundational idea here is that our minds are multiple. We all have different parts.
Right, like internal sub-personalities.
Exactly. When we experience trauma or deep fear, often in childhood, we develop these internal bodyguards, managers and protectors whose entire job is to ensure we never feel that specific pain again.
And so unblending is that incredibly difficult psychological act of recognizing you are being taken over by one of these defensive bodyguards, taking a deep breath, and asking that part to step back so your true grounded self can take the wheel.
It's dropping the armor. And our disagreement today is really about who has to drop that armor first when both people are just terrified of being wounded.
Right, so I'll start. I take the position that the controller, the wife, in this specific dynamic, absolutely must take the first step. And my reasoning is purely mechanical. She is the one who holds the system's pressure valve.
Okay, but how so?
Well, she is the active energy. She is the one pulling the trap tight. Her manager parts are terrified of abandonment, right? So to stave off the fear that her marriage is failing, she flexes. She organizes the itinerary, she critiques his silence, she demands emotional connection.
Because she is desperately trying to control the uncontrollable.
Exactly. But she holds the pressure valve. When she unblends, when she pauses and speaks from her true self, she immediately releases the pressure on the avoider. And that creates the necessary safe space for connection.
Well, I look at the exact same mechanics and come to the complete opposite conclusion. I am taking the position that the avoider, the husband, must be the one to initiate the unblending.
Even though it's much harder for him in that state?
Yes. While the text acknowledges it might be harder, it's the only way. Because you have to look at what his retreat actually means. The avoider operates from a deep fear of invasion and judgment, so he builds an ice wall.
Right. He withdraws.
But think about it. If the avoider bravely stops retreating and steps forward to articulate his fear, it instantly disarms the controller's deepest fear of abandonment. It addresses the actual root cause of the polarization rather than just treating the symptom of the controller's anxiety.
Okay, I see the emotional logic there, but let's really look at how the material answers this through the environment. This is a contextual therapy film. The setting isn't just a backdrop. It is an active participant.
You mean Tuscany?
Yes, Tuscany serves as a biological catalyst, a self-trigger, essentially. Her manager parts are built for the city, right? They're adapted to urban pressure, relentless deadlines, social judgment.
Sure, her nervous system is constantly scanning for threats.
Exactly. But when she arrives in Tuscany, the slow pace and the quiet naturally disarm her. The environment naturally unblends her. And notice what happens. When her grip on the finger trap loosens, that is when the space between them finally opens up.
A little bit, maybe.
It proves that the controller's relaxation is the absolute prerequisite for the system's healing. The environment shows us this visually.
Wait, let me stop you right there, because I think we need to look closer at the origin of this trip. You are looking at the beautiful accidental result of the scenery, but you are completely ignoring the initial intent. Why are they in Italy in the first place?
Well, to try and save the marriage, obviously.
Exactly. And who planned it? The wife did. The trip to Tuscany was originally conceived by her manager parts as what IFS calls an environmental firefighter.
An environmental firefighter, right.
Yes, it was a desperate attempt to extinguish the pain by changing the scenery rather than addressing the root cause. She is essentially trying to control his avoidance by putting him in a prettier setting.
But the setting does soothe her. That is undeniable.
It soothes her temporarily, sure, but look at how the husband reacts to this gorgeous, parasympathetic-inducing environment. Does he magically open up? No. He simply uses the new environment to further his avoidance.
Because he's still adjusting.
He retreats into the local wine. He literally hides behind the lens of his camera. He places a mechanical lens between himself and his wife. He brings his ice wall to Tuscany. It proves that until the avoider makes a conscious choice to step out, the environment alone isn't enough.
I mean, I actually think his reaction supports my side. Think of the analogy from the text about the fire hose.
The fire hose analogy.
Yeah, the text argues that the controller is the one holding the fire hose. Right, stopping the fire hose is a much faster way to put out the collateral damage of a fire than asking the person running from the fire to turn around.
Okay, but
She is blasting him with anxious energy. He brings the wall because he still feels pursued. The change of scenery doesn't immediately stop her pursuing energy. You cannot ask a person running from a fire hose to just casually turn around and have a chat while they're still getting blasted.
I actually love that analogy. But let's pause on the biological aspect for a second, because you are painting the husband as this helpless organism trapped in survival mode, while treating the wife as if she has all the agency.
Well, his internal system views speaking up as literal danger. The husband believes, if I don't participate, I won't get hurt. He's locked in a biological survival mode.
But that ignores the tragic irony of the polarization. The controller is also in survival mode.
I'm not denying she's in pain.
Both of their protectors are just fighting to save these crying inner exiles. The controller is absolutely terrified of chaos and failure in the marriage. And here's the thing, the avoider's silence is not a neutral act.
To him, it's a shield.
But to her, it's a weapon. His silence is the very weapon that is keeping the controller in survival mode. His absence confirms her deepest, darkest fear of abandonment every single day. Therefore, the avoider dropping the weapon of silence is the most vital move.
I just think weapon is completely the wrong word. You're asking a soldier under fire to drop their shield before the bullets stop flying. And the tragic part is the wife actually has the tools to stop the incoming fire first.
You mean the witnessing process?
Yes. The material details a very specific three-step tool for the controller to stop the cycle. Identify, unblend, and curiosity.
Right, the self-awareness piece.
Step 1. Identify. She feels the panic rising and says, my controlling part is getting activated because of his silence. Step 2. Unblend. She asks that part to step back instead of speaking for it.
Instead of just snapping at him.
Exactly. And step 3 is curiosity. She asks what that part fears. The text heavily emphasizes that a controller speaking from the self saying something like, "I see a part of me is scared right now," is a uniquely powerful invitation.
It is a beautiful invitation, I'll concede that.
It breaks defenses faster than any criticism ever could. She has the power to lower the shield.
I absolutely agree that speaking from the self is a powerful invitation. But I really question its efficacy if the avoider remains fully blended with his protective parts.
But it creates the conditions for him to unblend.
An invitation is just an echo in an empty room if nobody accepts it, right? Let's look at the climax of the film's witnessing process. She issues this gentle, unblended invitation. But the true breakthrough only occurs when the avoidant part of the husband actively stops building the wall.
Well, yes, he responds eventually.
Not just responds, he has to allow his self to step out to empathize with his wife's fear. The invitation is completely meaningless without the avoider's active, brave acceptance. The real power to break the cycle lies in his decision to step out of the fortress.
It's so fascinating how we are looking at the exact same sequence of events and assigning the real power to different moments. You see his emergence as the catalyst. I see his emergence as the inevitable result of her unblending.
I just don't think it's inevitable.
But it is mechanically. By engaging in those 3 steps, she lowers the temperature of the room from boiling to comfortable. She removes the atmospheric threat. The one applying the pressure absolutely must be the one to release the valve to create safety.
And I maintain that if we subscribe to that model, we are reinforcing a dynamic where the avoider never has to take responsibility for the freezing chill they bring to the room. The one withholding connection must bravely bridge the gap to heal the root fear of abandonment.
Well, despite our firm disagreement on the sequence of healing, I think we both find profound common ground in the wildcard perspective of the source material.
Oh, yes, the ancestral theme toward the end of the film.
Exactly. The ancient houses and the long history of Tuscany. It reminds the couple that they are both carrying psychological ghosts from previous generations.
It really does. It's such a vital reminder. These defensive bodyguards, the perfectionist manager and the icy avoider, they didn't just appear out of nowhere. They're often coping mechanisms passed down through families.
Right, they brought those ghosts in their suitcases to Italy, which reinforces something we are in total lockstep on. You, Me, and Tuscany is ultimately not a travel film.
Not at all. The beautiful scenery is completely secondary.
It is a demonstration of the terrifying reality that you have to find yourself in order to truly see another person. You have to unblend and find your grounded self before you can actually look across the table and see your partner, rather than just reacting to their defenses.
It's a process of psychological archaeology. And that is why this material offers such rich complexities. It really defies a single, simple answer about who is to blame or who has to fix it.
Which brings us right back to that bamboo finger trap. Whether you are the one pulling frantically to get away or the one gripping tightly, terrified to let go, the trap holds you both exactly the same.
The tension is shared.
It is. And so we leave you to reflect on your own dynamics. When you look at your own cycles of polarization, who do you believe holds the truest power to break the cycle? Is it the one who pulls or the one who pulls away?